I have a couple in-person campaign events coming up. That is July 25th and August 3rd at the Buckham Memorial Library. Anyone can come ask questions about the election, questions about what is going to be on their ballot, questions about where I stand on whatever issues you are passionate about, but I'm also trying to offer some virtual options as well. I've had a couple opportunities to speak to folks. We've done some door knocking over the past few weeks. It's been really special being able to meet people and talk about a thing that a lot of us care about. And that thing is Faribault. I've lived in Faribault my whole life. I love this community. I have done work in this community that I am passionate about. That's related to the arts, that's related to history, that's related to serving the community and trying to make it a better place and trying to highlight all the things that are wonderful about Faribault, while also highlighting what needs to be done to improve and where we can better live up to all things that we hope Faribault can be. One of the first things that really started getting me passionate about the community was the production of local history documentaries. And that's where people might know or recognize my name from. They might see me posting about it online in other venues as well. And Faribault's history has really inspired me. It's inspired me to know more. It's inspired me to use history as the lens through which I view the world, and that helps me process all of the major world historical events that we've been dealing with over the last few years, both as a world and locally as Faribault. Because by looking to the past, I think that gives us a sense both in a good way and a bad way about what we should and should not do in response to these major events that are happening, whether it's a pandemic or war or just the process of creating and maintaining a community. There are a lot of lessons to be learned about how we value each other, what we take into account when we make decisions, and where our priorities are as a community. Even though these people lived, 100, 150 years ago, they still have a direct impact on our lives, whether it's quite literally where we live, where the streets are drawn out, or what institutions do we have in town? What did the people 150 years ago value, and where do those values leave us today? All of those things have a direct impact on many, many people. So the topic of history is not consigned to textbooks. One thing that I've seen in history is people had to wear many hats. So whether you were a lawyer who also served as a judge, who also served as a state legislator, you can go through the biographies of someone like Rodney Mott or Tom Buckham, and you see all of the hats that they wore. Even Alexander Faribault served in many, many capacities in trying to build up and improve his town. And I think we need to move away from the idea of, okay, here's the political class of people and here's everyone else. I think we need to move more in the direction where the people who serve are also active in many different parts of the community and they wear other hats in the community. And it's not that we need this separation. We actually need, I think, further integration. And there are a lot of people who are extremely active in the community, and I think we need to reinforce that. And my goal is to be able to serve the community in the ways that I have been, whether it's through being an election judge or serving on local boards, producing history documentaries, making sure history is maintained, or even being an active community member. All of those things are important to do on top of being involved in organizing for elections. I was fortunate enough to have a fair amount of questions. I did something like this on Instagram last night, and you can follow at Sam Temple Commissioner. So I encourage you to check that out. One of the most fundamental questions that a lot of people had was, well, what is a Rice County Commissioner and what do they do? And it's a fair question. We can't fault people for not knowing, because I do think it is incumbent on elected officials to seek out community members who aren't currently part of the conversation, seek out community members who aren't currently active in the local political process and the local decision-making process. to try and keep them informed. The question is, what does a Rice County Commissioner do? Well, the Rice County Board of Commissioners make millions of dollars in decisions every single year, whether it's local property tax or funding for public safety or mental health services, providing funding to local nonprofits that are filling some of the gaps that aren't served currently by county government. They also make a lot of decisions in allocating state and federal dollars that are often distributed at the county level. So they make a lot of really important decisions every year. And especially, you're more likely to come in contact with the county if you're at some sort of disadvantage. If you need a social service, whether it's because you're retired, you're a veteran, you meet a certain poverty threshold, or you're dealing with the court system, or even for everyday reasons, like you purchased a piece of property, you need to go through the county to officially register that for your name, things like that. So anytime that someone is coming into contact with the county government, they are dealing with a staff member or a system that has been approved and whose funding has been organized and allocated by the Board of Commissioners. Now, the Board of Commissioners are not a legislative policy. So, if I'm elected, it's not like I'll be, writing legislation for how things are going to be organized. They vote on staff proposals. So county staff will provide ideas of, here's different things, they'll hear kind of where the interests are, what the commissioners want to see done. Here's the sort of system they want to have place. And then the county staff comes in with these several options. So they leave it to the experts in their fields to come up with exactly how to implement the will of the board. The board is able, when they're presented with that proposal, they can tweak it on the margins, but in terms of wholesale designing something, that's not really what county commissioners do. But with the ability to tweak, with the ability to have a hand in how these systems are formulated, how is Rice County different or similar to the way other counties and communities are organized, that's a very big deal. And like I said, it's millions of dollars in spending every single year. That leads into the next bit about why I decided to run. I was hesitant to run for office at first. My attitude has been, I'd rather vote for someone else. I'd rather there be another candidate that I would be excited to support. My whole life, I've been hearing about how we need young people to be involved. We need the next generation to come in and do things. And I've also been hearing, if you want to see change, you have to be the change. You have to be willing to step up, put yourself out there to be a positive change in the community and a part of the community growth that you want to see happen. I have certain ideas about what I think Faribault has potential to be. And at a certain point, I realized I need to step up and do that. And should I be elected, maybe my campaign can help show someone who, isn't currently similar to any of the Rice County commissioners that they can be involved. So it doesn't matter if they're young. It doesn't matter if they work a full-time job. It doesn't matter if they have these other things that might generally be seen as a barrier to serving their community. They do have the capacity to do that, whether it's running for county commissioners themselves, whether it's running for city council, mayor, or even applying to serve on a board or commission. Or even you don't have to be working directly in government to make a difference. You can get involved at local nonprofits. You can get involved with organizing different direct aid things that people need in the community. How are we filling the gaps that currently aren't being served by our system? There are lots of ways that you can get involved, and I think a lot of it comes back to communicating with people. And there hasn't been, I think, that effort, at least on the county level, to communicate with people. Rice County commissioners meet at 8:30 a.m. on Tuesday mornings. They do not have video recordings of their meetings, and the meeting minutes are extremely bare bones. They detail what was discussed and what the final votes were. They don't have any information about who asked what question, what community interests were brought up, what did they go back and forth on, what was, changed and tweaked. They don't have those details. And that is different than what people are used to from their local government. Those things that I described, the detailed meeting notes and the recordings, that happens for the city of Faribault and the city of Northfield. So for folks living in Faribault, that is the level of transparency that they're used to. And not just that, they also have meetings on weekday evenings when more people are able to attend in person, should they want to. But again, even if they can't attend those evening meetings, they can go back and watch video recordings. And the county is not living up to that standard. They're not living up to the standard that Faribault is used to and that Faribault deserves. So I'm not going into this with any, pet projects. I'm not running because I want to, I promise that I'm going to fight for XYZ. My only pet project is transparency. I want meetings to be recorded. I want to have detailed meeting minutes. And ideally, I would like to see meetings take place in the evening so that more working people can attend. I think we can get there. I think we can convince the current county commissioners, county staff. I think we can make the argument. I think we can make it happen. Short of that, if I'm elected, I will be that communicator as needed. I will be the person who hops on a live stream like this or does a write-up every week. Short of making a systemic change, I will at least strive to make a political change on the County Board of Commissioners. So I believe strongly in only making promises that I can keep, and I'm telling the truth above all else. The one surefire promise I will make as a candidate is that I will be transparent and I will seek out input. And I will do my best to reach you. I will do my best to keep you informed. Because if I'm an elected official, the onus is on me to keep you informed. You might watch this and say, Sam's not really my cup of tea. Or, you know what, I don't think Sam is my vote for whatever reason, XYZ. Make sure you still vote. Make sure you still turn out on August 9th. Find a candidate that you're excited about. Hopefully there's someone in the race that you do want to support, and I encourage you to do so. I would much rather lose because there's an extremely active base of voters in Faribault than win because people just didn't turn out. So I really encourage people to mark August 9th on their calendars, spread the word about August 9th. And if you have any questions about any of that, you can reach out to me, as I said, or come to the library on July 25th. And August 3rd, I hope you will turn out and drag anyone along who doesn't normally get involved in politics or doesn't like to, get in any, political debates, controversy, because having opinions and being passionate about our community should not be controversial. But we do a disservice to our community when we're not actively involved. We do a disservice to Faribault and our neighbors when we choose to not be involved. So I encourage everyone and their niece to get involved in the election, turn out on August 9th to vote. And regardless of if you're in my district, there are lots of very important things on the ballot on August 9th. So please make sure that you have August 9th on your calendars. And if you have any questions as to what will be on the ballot on August 9th, please join me at the Buckham Memorial Library, July 25th and August 3rd. But now, I am going to get to some questions that I've received through Facebook Messenger. Why does transparency on the County Board of Commissioners matter, and why should we care what they do? I think people should care about what county commissioners do because they are working on your behalf. More than spending tax dollars, which they do spend millions of dollars every year, they also decide what the framework of the community is going to be. They also decide, who are we going to prioritize? What do we want the future of Faribault? What do we want the future of Rice County to be? Do we want it to be energetic, passionate, visionary? Do we want it to be a place that is looking to the future? The place that is not just looking about, okay, how can we serve the present? How can we serve, the way things have been? I want people who look to the future, who are excited about the future. I plan on living in Faribault for a long time to come. if I want to start a business, if I want to be involved in local theater as I have been, what kind of community do I want to be performing for? What kind of community do we want to support? Are we a community that supports the arts? Are we a community that supports the least among us? How do we fund social services? How do we fund public health? How do we fund the basic necessities of taking care of all of us? Not just because it makes financial sense to do so, which it does, but because it's the right thing to do as a community. How do we live out the things that we were initially founded on about taking care of one another? That's why you should care about what county commissioners do. And then, of course, there's the pocketbook side of it. Taxes are taken out every year. And right now, Rice County has a relatively low tax rate compared to other counties across the state. And that's fine. But do you know what those tax dollars are spent on? Do you know what your taxes last year were spent on? There are ways you can find out about it online. There are ways that you can get involved. But I would say it has been, up until very, very recently, rather difficult. The Rice County government hired a communication specialist earlier this year, and I'm glad that they did that. There's already been a marked difference in communication. But that was a very recent measure. And it didn't have to be. The current makeup of the county boards is not new. Change could have been made, and there have been people advocating for change. But it's very difficult to get more people involved when there isn't an attitude of, I am seeking out public opinion. I'm seeking to reach people who are not normally part of the process. That's the attitude that I want to have. I think it is imperative that elected officials try and represent as many people as possible, not just the people who have lobbying groups for their interests, not just the people who already have a personal connection with the people who are serving, not just the people who have the means to attend meetings, whether they be business owners, private residents. It's important that we speak for everyone, that we do our best to represent everyone in Rice County, regardless of if they can physically be at a meeting. I've been astonished that the number one question I've received while campaigning, while I'm door knocking, or even while I was in the parade, I had people shout up at me, "What do county commissioners do?" So I did my best to answer that in the 30 seconds I had going by, but I'm not sure I did a very good job because it's not easy to explain in 30 seconds. And I think that is indicative of the level of not just transparency, but energy that has been on the county board. I think that there are public servants on the board who genuinely care about the community, who genuinely want to see improvements, and they might even have ideas about what they want to see done. But I don't think their philosophy of civic engagement is what my philosophy of civic engagement is. Having passionate community members speaking out is not a bad thing. Having people advocating for their beliefs is not a nuisance. It means that you have a passionate community, and that's a good thing. If you are disagreeing with someone, or if someone cares enough to disagree with you about what's at stake and whatever issue you're talking about at the county level, that's a good thing for your community, and that's a good thing for your governmental body, that you have citizens that care enough to be involved, that you have citizens that care enough to organize and advocate for what they believe in. So why should they care what they do? Why does transparency matter? It matters because it affects all of us. And even if every single issue doesn't affect you personally, it affects one of your neighbors. It affects the landscape of the community. Even if you yourself, might not make use of the Rice County Historical Society, your community overall benefits by having that funded. Even if you don't personally make use of WIC, people in your community, children in your community benefit by having food assistance programs. There are lots of very important things that should we take a look at it, not just to understand here's the service directly that we're providing on a one-to-one basis, but what is the impact that we are funding these different items? What's the impact we have when we fund food programs? What's the impact when we fund health programs? All of these things, if you just want to look at it from the cold, hard cash perspective, the amount of money that we invest in these things is made back, because it is much, much cheaper to help someone who is in crisis, whether it's mental health or food insecurity or housing. It is much, much cheaper to address someone on the front end when they first need help than what it is when they might hit rock bottom later on, or they might be dealing with multiple crises at once later on. I know a question that also comes up quite a bit is, well, are you going to lower my taxes? Well, are you going to raise my taxes? And that's a question I don't have an answer for. I believe in telling people the truth. I believe in being open and honest. And honestly, I won't commit to that because I don't know what will be on the budget next year. I don't know what's going to be line by line in the budget proposal. But what I will say is I will only vote to use tax dollars responsibly. I will only vote to use it in a way that either has a significant effect on lowering the cost of living in Rice County or significantly increases the quality of life in Rice County. Because some people look at government as the only thing they can do to distinctly improve my life or to better my economic circumstances are to lower taxes. And that's not true. Sometimes taxes can stay the same and you simply can reallocate funds in a different way to increase the life experience of living in Rice County, or taxes are reallocated so that your taxes might not be lowered, but your cost of living overall is lower. And all of these things have this macro effect on the county level. And it is the job of public servants and elected officials to articulate that, to explain, yes, this is our budget for this year. This is the effect it will have on your taxes. Here are the benefits we get out of it, not just on a one-to-one basis, but here's the macro effects of funding this particular program. And here's what it does. I have not met anyone who says, I don't want to see any change. I don't want to see any improvement. I'm good with how things are 100%. Everyone I talk to has particular things they'd like to see done. Everyone I talk to has something that they want to see invested in our community. So we need to speak to those needs and talk about how we are addressing them. Whether you are concerned about pocketbook issues, you're concerned about how your family or your neighbor's family might be able to make ends meet, it's a serious issue. And we need to talk about whether there are levers at the county level that can get that done. If there aren't levers at the county level that can get things done, how is your elected official, how is your Rice County Commissioner advocating for you? How are they using their position to advocate at the city level? How are they using their position to advocate at the state level, at the federal level? Because it doesn't matter what level of government you're at. If you are endowed with the faith of your community, you have the opportunity to advocate on their behalf. And that's what leadership is. That's what leadership looks like. It is hearing from the community as to the issues that they care about. It is balancing public input with the advice of the experts who are county staff and anyone else that they might bring in. And it's balancing their own morals, their own ideals with all of those other factors. It's not an easy job, certainly. But that doesn't mean the effort can't be put in to both have the information coming in from the public and seeking to get the information back out to them. Got another question here. Okay, we'll follow that one up with a softball. What do you like best about Faribault? There are lots of things that I'm proud of in Faribault. And for one thing, we have one of the best park systems in the state. The city of Faribault and Rice County does a spectacular job with the parks in Faribault, and we are really lucky to have so many of them. As I said before, our history inspires me. I think we have a really spectacular framework of civic engagement in Faribault. And there are lots of tools and lots of precedent for getting things done and making change that we want to see in our community. And I think that's something that Faribault needs to take full advantage of. That's something that Faribault needs to be proud of at every level. And not only that, not only talk about it, but live up to it. Live up to the founders who had to stick their necks out to make this town. Live up to the people who had to stick their necks out to make a city charter. The people who had to stick their necks out to make all of the investments that took place 100, 150, 50 years ago. They had to have guts and say, we ought to make this investment. And oftentimes the people of their day did not see the value in that investment. And the people that did might not have necessarily wanted to stick their necks out themselves. But we see the benefit of that. We see the benefit of all those investments today. So I think when you look at things from the historical perspective and you view the world through that historical lens, you come to understand, I guess for me, what really matters. And what matters is that the human level. What matters is, how are we valuing human life in Rice County? How are we valuing every single person that we see on the street? And who are we prioritizing? Are we prioritizing the people who are simply the loudest? Or are we prioritizing the people who work 2 jobs and simply don't have a voice politically? Are we valuing and prioritizing the people who aren't currently engaged? Because that's an important thing to understand too. Rarely do local elections get more than 5,000 votes for a candidate. Whether it's the districts in Rice County, which all have roughly, 12, 13,000 people in them, very rarely do they get more than 2,000 or 3,000 for any of those elections. There's something significantly wrong there. And that's not unique to Rice County. That's not unique to Faribault. We see that on the national level. Engagement in elections and engagement making decisions is very, very low. But what increases that engagement is when we prioritize everyday. It's when we prioritize working class people. It's when we prioritize the people who don't inherently have a seat at the table. That's when you get higher turnout. That's when you get higher buy-in from your community. That's how you take your community from, this is a nice place to live, to, I love this place. I love Faribault because it has these unique things. And when you feel that your public servants care about you, when you feel that your neighbors care about the quality of your life, the dignity of your life, that's what makes you love a community. And those are the moments that I have felt most attached to Faribault, whether it's present day or it's our history. When we value fundamentally any human life that just happens to be within our borders, that's what I'm most proud of Faribault. And I think that's what we can all strive to accomplish, both in our personal lives, but also in how we organize and how we address things in our local politics. I believe the next question comes from Facebook Messenger as well. And that is, how will you communicate with voters after the election? That is another good question. I'm running on transparency, how to talk about. I exactly plan to be transparent. And that is going to be largely the methods that we use in campaigns. I know that people think it can be a real pain with door knocking or having regular events from politicians, but I do plan to have regular town hall meetings like I'm having at the library on the 25th and the 3rd. I plan on having regular social media posts. If I'm elected, I'll figure out kind of what the pace ought to be, what amount of information fits in a certain amount of time. Right now, I'm thinking that I would have kind of a weekly write-up of things we discussed. If that proves to be a bit over the top for the amount of things we discussed, then I'll move, to a different format. But I plan on having regular writings that people can either look at what would currently be my campaign website. Then you can go in and see, here's Sam Temple writing about all the things we discussed online. I plan on doing regular live streams like this, making more videos to explain not just my particular reasons for voting the way that I did. That's kind of a defensive way to go about it. I also want to explain the issue itself, explain some of the backstory. How did we get here to be voting on such an issue is this, and then explain why I voted the way that I voted, my personal thought process, and also allowing constituents to have an opportunity to agree, disagree, provide alternate perspectives on the things that we discussed. But I also recognize that not everyone in the community, speaks English. So there are certain services that I'm looking at, should I be elected, where anything that I do write up would be able to be translated, so people could toggle in to turn it to Spanish or Somali or Vietnamese or anything that people might rather read in. So those are some of the methods that I have. And part of it is seeing what will people embrace. I want this to be collective effort. I want this to be something that people can latch onto. Like I was saying before, my hope is that this campaign and hopefully my election to this position will help spur more people to run for local office, will help spur people who don't currently see themselves in local leadership or see their values shared, or even if they do see people that agree with them, maybe people that don't conduct themselves in the way that they want their public servants to conduct themselves. And my goal is to lead people along to the realization that I had, that if you want to see certain qualities in a candidate, or you want to see someone at the table with your beliefs, that person might just have to be you, at least for now, because we need to build up the new system of generating leaders in the community. We need to build up a new way of creating not just the next generation, but just the next batch, the next group of people who will take on leadership and guide the vision of the community. And that's not just done during election times. Leadership doesn't just come from election. It comes fundamentally from organizing. It comes from people passionate about their community, and usually about particular issues, because whether it's the Paradise Center for the Arts and what they did, or the Faribault Family Aquatic Center, all of those things started as, for a lot of people, that was the one issue they cared about and they want to see it happen. But by going through the process of making these things come to fruition, people learn more about how local government works. They learn more about the process, and they learn more about really what it takes to make these decisions and what it takes to make improvement. And it takes work. None of this stuff is a cakewalk, but it is accessible if the people currently in these positions help to make it accessible. And that's what I hope will be accomplished with my candidacy and my hopeful election. The start of a new conversation around Faribault, a new conversation around how things get done, a new conversation around who we prioritize. And I think there's a real opportunity in every election, but also every day, to put in the legwork and make that change in Faribault. Because I know a lot of people love this community. I know a lot of people care about their neighbors. I know a lot of people believe in Faribault, and they just need leaders who speak to that, and they need leaders who will, put some muscle behind it and make it happen. That's what I hope to do. I'm going to take a brief digression now and talk about how you can get in touch with me. I'm going to pull up the website that I have. That website is samtemplecommissioner.com. So on my landing page here, you see some very simple stuff. Who is your commissioner? We have all of the information that you could possibly want about voting on August 9th. You can find out where to get your ballot. You can find out who your current county commissioner is, what district you currently live in. And let's check out our Secretary of State's website, because there's lots of good stuff on here. If you put in your information here, you can find out exactly down to the letter what will be on your ballot on August 9th. August 9th is a very important election, so you'll see candidates for governor, candidates for Congress. You'll see there's a primary for sheriff, as well as a primary for county commissioner here in Rice County. So there are lots of important elections taking place on August 9th. And I encourage everyone to make sure that they not only know what's on the ballot, but they're also registered to vote, which you can also do through the Secretary of State's website. All of the information can be found here. All the information on the legal requirements for voting and how you can exactly register online. There are other methods to register here, obviously, but if online is easiest for you, you just need to make sure that you have all of the identification required and an email address. So again, if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me. If you don't want to reach out to me to discuss that, that is perfectly okay. There are excellent election administration officials at both the county and the city level. So I encourage you to reach out to them if you have any questions or need any help with making sure you are registered to vote. I hope you will get in touch with me, reach out. I will try to answer as much as I can when people comment on things or shoot me messages. I do plan on addressing all of the things that people have reached out to me about. And if you have any issues, whether it's about issues the county might face, or even just things happening in your own backyard that may or may not be county level, but you just need some help addressing it, I'm happy to talk you through that as well. You can reach out to me through my website. Again, that is www.samtemplecommissioner.com, or right here on Facebook where you're watching this right now. So again, if you have any questions about the upcoming election, I hope you will reach out, and I hope as many people as possible can attend the town halls that I am having at the Buckham Memorial Library on July 25th and August 3rd. But for now, that is everything from me. Thank you everybody who has tuned in, and anyone who is watching this after the fact. My name is Sam Temple. I'm running for Rice County Commissioner for Faribault's 3rd District, encouraging you all to turn out and vote on August 9th. Ooh, wow. We're wrapping up in great time as I'm losing my voice as we speak. It's going to be a hot week, everyone. Stay hydrated. That's the message that I'm ending on. Stay hydrated. It's an important one, not talked about nearly enough. Stay hydrated. I approve this message. Bye-bye.